Hello, and thanks for joining us at Universal Heritage Television Niger. We are bringing to you another edition of our breakfast program, Daybreak Niger. We are going to review the elections, what has transpired so far. My name is Afam Echi. I have two gentlemen to discuss this issue. On my immediate left is Duru Daniel, a radio presenter and public opinion analyst. Duru, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Afam, and stay put, you are viewers.
Now, next to him is Martins Ori, a senior journalist in the state and a publisher. Martins, you are welcome.
Afam, thank you, and we hope it's going to be very interesting to our viewers.
Yes, I think it is going to be very interesting. Let's move, let's talk, let's discuss. And before we move on, I have to remind our viewers, and we will plead that you help to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, the program. Nigeria went to the polls on Saturday, the 25th of February, and to elect a new set of leaders to manage our affairs for the next 4 years. So much has happened. Before that election, Martins, I ask you, before that election, there is so much hype of confidence, in the INEC, based on the promises made by INEC that the election was going to be free and fair, and because of the electronic, because of the deployment of beavers, so much confidence was built on what INEC was saying. And because in the past, the beavers have been deployed and we saw the rewards. Now, do you think that such confidence is misplaced based on what is playing out in the presidential and National Assembly election?
The answer is a straight affirmation. You can recall that before 2 years ago, many Nigerians had actually lost confidence in the electoral processes of the country. Taking into consideration, if you are based on your age, the first election in Nigeria was conducted on December 12th, 1959, that ushered in the independence. It was highly manipulated. Another one that was conducted in 1964 along the regions brought us to the Civil War. That was what caused the first coup, and we couldn't manage it well. It resulted into the Civil War. 13 years after military rule in 1979, there was another election in Nigeria in 1979. That election was also didn't go down well with so many Nigerians because there was an issue called 2/3% of 19 states that it was said if it was very much well interpreted, Awo ought to have won that election. But unfortunately, it was Shehu Shagari, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, that was declared the president. Now, in 1983, it became worse. States that were won by the opposition parties of UPN, MPP, PRP, and the GMPP, all of them, one after the other, almost 85%, later became MPN states in what became the first tsunami in Nigeria in 1983, and it brought back the military on the last day of December 31st, 1983. After 15 years of the military regime again, we came back in 1999 with Absalami Abubakar promising, and he maintained it, returned civil rule to Nigeria, of which General Olusegun Obasanjo, former head of state, became the president. That election, many people didn't look into the problems, the crisis of confidence of INEC, because everything was, let us return Nigeria to democracy. But in 2003, when every person now was aware of what was happening, you could have seen what happened before. The former APP lost states in the north. They had 9 states in the north before. The former AD states lost all of them except in Lagos, and that was where Tinubu started. Every other state in the southwest became PDP except Lagos that escaped. And that was why Tinubu started into the presidency now. So every other thing from that time till now about elections has been disastrous. Now, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu came and said, we have discovered a device that is going to help Nigeria and Nigerians in election management. And he called it BVAS, Bimodal Voter Accreditation System. And it was tested in Edo, it worked miracles. Tested in Osun, it was very fantastic. Anambra, very, very, very wonderful. Now, that was even what made more Nigerians, especially of the youth age, who had abandoned everything about election, to go and pick their beavers. 14 more Nigerians got registered for the election. More of them, as we are told, were youths. On the election day, lo and behold, 25th February, last Saturday, the beavers for whatever reasons, whether it was magic, did not work. It is a colossal disaster.
Thank you so much for that in-depth analysis. Now, let me ask you, Duru Daniels. You listened to Martins, and he painted a picture of our inability to manage elections successfully without issues. And so much money was released to INEC, so much resources were deployed. But on the election day, there were logistic issues to the extent that elections started very, very late. In some areas and in so many other areas, there were no elections. So how will you describe the level of preparedness by INEC, given that they had over 4 years to plan for this election? Are we supposed to have logistic issues like unavailability of ink pads, stamps, and things like that?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Afram. Whatever you saw that happened on Saturday, as far as I'm concerned, we are deliberate. This is my personal opinion. Whatever INEC did on Saturday, for me, was deliberate. Just like you said, they have 4 whole years to prepare for this exercise. More so, all they wanted, all they needed, we are provided. They never told Nigerians at any point while they were preparing that they are lacking anything. All that they needed for the election, we are provided. And you know why Nigerians are very pained about what we saw on Saturday is that Nigerians, we are following up to find out from them if they are having any problems, if they are having challenges that could, mar the process. They were giving us assurances. They were telling us, do you know that these people even took out time to test run the beavers, the IRAF, and all the promises they made to us? So, for me, there was no reason, and there cannot be any reason for what we saw on Saturday. For me, I believe it was a deliberate ploy to really, make mess of the system, of the electoral system, and then perhaps make who the powers that be wanted to emerge as against the will of the people.
Okay, Martins, you had Durudana said it was deliberate. Whatever played out on Saturday was deliberate. Now, let me remind us that over time, these issues, why it is so disturbing and worrisome, is that these issues have continued to play out in previous elections. For example, let me be pointed. On the issue of deploying both personnel and materials to polling units, let me take for example, as at 10 a.m., I monitored the election. I was at the Old Township Stadium, which was hosting Ikenebu Ward 1. As at 10 a.m., there were no materials, there were no INEC personnel, and the crowd had already gathered, in anxiety. When they saw our media team, they thought we were INEC personnel. They swooped on us, and we told them no. We came here to monitor what was happening. Then we had to go to the government college, which was supposed to be the distribution point from where materials were lifted to cover our municipal camp. As at that point, we saw some of these presiding officers. They were all gathered there. They have not moved, and they said they were waiting for vehicles. Now, as election is supposed to have started by 8 o'clock, and by 10 o'clock they have not moved. If you check the distance between government college and the stadium, when we moved from that point to that, it is 4 minutes. So what do you think could have happened that, you know, INEC could not move materials within such a short distance? And I can tell you that election did not start even by 11. So how do you...
The fact is that, as Inuduru said, the whole thing was a calculated attempt to frustrate the election, and I totally agree with him, because number one, INEC told us that they had contracted National Road Transport Workers, contracted National Road Transport Union owners, the two organizations that, you know, control transportation in Nigeria. So the question is, what was the type of agreement INEC entered with the motorists? I mean, with the vehicle owners, with the transport owners. When did INEC tell them that this election would start at 8 a.m. in the morning, and by 6 a.m., 6:37, you know, latest, you expected to be at designated centers where these sensitive, critical materials will be distributed? Did they, and why did it happen nationwide? If it were in an isolated situations like Imo, and if in Imo, maybe 1, 2, 3 polling stations, not in the entire country. The whole thing was orchestrated, tailored for the election to fail. That is the first point that will make you to understand that INEC was complicit in the whole drama that resulted in the frustration of Nigerians last Saturday. There was no need for such hiccups, given them the humongous amount of money that was made available to them. Now, did they complain that the transporters they engaged had called them to say that we are not going to come? Mind you, in anything you are doing, there is a plan A and plan B. If you had gone for OB Transport Limited, you should also go for IDU Transport Enterprises, so that in the case that OB did not come, UDI will come. So for the mere fact that all Nigeria stood still on that 25th morning, Saturday, waiting for, and everywhere you call, I called the woman, Professor Ago. I said, I'm in the radio station, and every caller has told us, I'm having over 18 callers so far across the state. No place, and this is after 11. What is happening? He said they are having transportation issues. I'm quoting her. You understand? So what I mean is that I quite agree with Dulu that there was an orchestrated plot being hatched in high places of INEC to frustrate that election that Saturday, and they got it. But what I don't know is if they're going to get away with it.
Okay, sorry, in addition, because I also monitored the election on that 25th February, that Saturday, though I was in a radio situation room, but at a point we had to leave. At least we visited the municipal council, we visited a particular ward where election did not take place, where we even called the woman on phone. We were calling the PRO, she was not picking, we called the rec, and when she picked up, it was the same reason Mr. Martin gave here, that she was giving the reason of logistics. And we were asking, even here in municipal, if you say that some of the drivers turned down the arrangement, 9 minutes, to go to the hinterlands, to go to the rural areas, what of here in the municipal? And she assured us, gave us the whole assurances that she will make a call and they will come, and they never came. I'm talking about a particular ward here in, I think that's 021, Azuzi Ward 1, polling unit 021. At the end of the day, election never held there. Then we moved to Akwa Akoma. In fact, we were almost mobbed, just like you said. We were almost attacked when we got to Akwa Akoma. It's just that, but I commend the electorates there. if not for what they did. In fact, the only INEC official, the core member there, the only person that attended, that came, they held her hostage. Yes, they said, you go nowhere until the others come. In fact, there are supposed to be 3 booths inside that place, according to what they said. And at the end of the day, only one showed up, as against 3 officials for each polling unit. And these were the experiences. And at the end of the, in fact, if not the level of pressure mounted by the people around there, who also blocked the gates and insisted that nobody goes anywhere, if not for that, that place would have, they later deployed their personnel. I mean, the INEC officials, they later got there, I think around 2 or 3 when they started, and eventually, I think, no, about 3 or 4 p.m. That was when they started, and eventually voting took place. So there is no justifiable reason for what we saw on Saturday. And if we want to tell ourselves the truth remains that what was done by INEC, both here in Imo and almost across the Federation, they are all deliberate, calculated attempt to frustrate Nigerian electorates, whom they gave assurances, lifted their hopes, and dashed it. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, actually, INEC is taking so much blame. But I must also make this observation that there were some areas, you know, at least I can remember one issue that I do not know how we should blame INEC. That is the situation where people that were recruited to officiate in the voting at the last minute pulled out. What was INEC? Martin, I'm asking you now, what should INEC have done at that point? Let me give an example. In Ogwa Ward 2 at Kwarazu, in Ogwa, you know, in the Ogwa Community Primary School, the presiding officer that is supposed to activate the beavers did not show up. And the other 2 presiding officers were stranded. They could not do anything. The only way they resolved that challenge was to assess the next polling unit, which was very close, and they got support. And in so many other areas too, some of the ad hoc staff failed to show up, and the impact was showed in disenfranchising many other persons who are supposed to have voted. In that case, what could INEC have done?
Affirmation, there is no excuse for that. It's just what I earlier said, that when you are having an exercise of that magnitude, you don't just rely on one point of line of action. It doesn't happen. It's just like a commander, a general leading a squad. You don't just map out what you must map out your exit, you must map out the emergency, you must map out there's something they call to retrieve, that is to advance back, advance forward. There are so many ways. So what I'm saying in effect is that
in somebody there should be plan A and plan B.
Plan A and if possible plan C to that effect, knowing very well that election was so dear to the heart of many Nigerians. That was why for the first time in the history of Nigeria, we had 93 million registered voters plus, of which 87 went and collected. Let me tell you the simple truth, which you don't know. In Imo State, they say 600 people. It's not true. It's not true that was what voted that election. It's not true. In Lagos, it's 1.2 million. It's not true. All these things were downplayed. At the end of the day, they will say, bring evidence. What other evidence are you going to prove? That people trooped out to go and register and collected. So why did they... and it was not easy collecting the PVCs. Why did they go to collect the PVCs? Is to vote. All these things they did was to frustrate the voters. So the issue of what if I claim now that even those people that did not show up are ad hoc workers of INEC and by extension INEC workers? What if I allege now that they knew what happened and call police and DSS to go and arrest them and question them why they even went for recruitment in a job they knew that they would not be able to do? They have to tell Nigerians why they sat back. That's the issue.
And apart from that, please, let me just add this, because I also had one of the officials, or some of the officials who are closely related to me, who also shared their experiences. And apart from that, even before the election, I was following up. You understand? I was getting updates, preparation updates. I mean, so at some point, I realized that this beaver for each polling unit was meant to be 2. The INEC said yes, for each polling unit, it must be 2 in case of anything. And they have in their, even when they were taken to their rack, that is the registration area center, you know, from where distribution will take place, they were told there, if you're having a challenge or challenges with beaver, call on so and so person. He has a spare. So that is why this issue of those who cannot operate the beaver or those who did not show up shouldn't come up. Because if all of them, for example, if 2 people appeared or showed up and then the person who is supposed to be with the beaver is not there, if INEC really meant well, really meant business, it's very simple to contact the person who is with the spare and you go on with the process. So that one is out of it. The excuse is very watery.
Okay, I hope INEC officials are learning and listening, because there is so much learning points to pick from this. Martin, let me ask you again. The issue of the massive turnout, I can attest that there was so much, in spite of the fears over insecurity, people trooped out. I know in some voting centers where as at 2 p.m. INEC is here to show up, and the people have gone back. The president of the community now had to use tank criers when INEC showed up to begin to bring people, and you see these old men, they came out again. You know, so you can see that there is so much enthusiasm. So what do you think, you know, could have led to that? I mean, the massive interest with the youth, the old men, everybody. What possibly?
You see, in religion or in cultural sciences, there's something we call ritual. In religion, there's something we call indoctrination. You see, if you are in the Catholic Church, for example, immediately you are at the age of 10, 12, you are indoctrinated that not going to mass on a Sunday is a sin. You are indoctrinated, if you are receiving the communion, that if you don't receive communion after a period of time, you are committing sin. At least during time of Easter, they call it Pascha. It is compulsory for you to receive communion. So what I'm saying in there is that Nigerians were so much indoctrinated into believing INEC that this election, the votes were going to count for the first time. And they introduced an electronic device that made Nigerians, after having tested that device in Osun, in Edo and Anambra, and it worked. So many Nigerians were very much indoctrinated into, let me go and perform my civic duty. Let me go and do my constitutional right to vote who governs me. And Nigerians were tired of a particular set of people they didn't want to govern, especially the youths. So when in the beginning, in the early time of that day, it appeared that things went wrongly. And later, after 10, 11, 12, 1, the voters had that the INEC officials had arrived at the polling units. They still had that intention. There was still a force to drive them to the polling centers to perform that ritual. And as I said, in the cultural circles, it is binding on you to perform your ritual. If you don't do it, there is always a consequence for it. In this democratic process now, the consequence of not performing that ritual is that by the time you don't do it or you don't vote, you are already voting for the wrong persons. Having this at the back of their minds was an enough factor that, to move to go and vote. But I must have to also comment that, unfortunately, sadly, it was it was so sad.
Okay, due to that, Martin said beavers worked in some other areas before the 25th February election. Now, when the results were being collected, there were agitation by party agents. it will appear that INEC abandoned the beavers. How would you look at that?
Okay, it was part of what I pointed out earlier, that whatever happened was deliberate. Because I doubt if there is any reason, or there will be any reason whatsoever INEC will come up with in defense of that beaver. Though I've heard they are saying that it all of a sudden stopped working. Some were saying network issue. But for me, I don't believe any of this. And my reasons for not believing any of this is very simple. Now, we are talking about an equipment you brought in and that you have used in 1, 2, 3 elections. And looking at this one, you said, okay, this one is going to be nationwide. You also tried to experiment it. They took out time, took a day, and test run the gadget. And at the end of the day, told Nigerians that it worked perfectly well. So what we saw was a deliberate and calculated attempt to set it aside. It was just set aside. And then because for them to achieve their ill-intended purpose, they needed to do away with beaver. That was what we saw. We went back to manual collation, manual whatever, everything. The IRF, they promised us that was going to be a game changer, that was going to do the magic, was nowhere to be found. Ordinarily, why the elections are being concluded at the polling unit, they told us that it will be transferred immediately, such that from the comfort of your home, you can just log in and take a look at the result. In fact, that was what raised the hope of Nigerians, raised the assurances that our votes are going to count. But unfortunately, they did this. But while we continue to lament about this, I have this belief that is not all over. I'm just being frank as a Nigerian. It is not all over, because just like we said, these sufferings, a lot of young people sacrificed a lot of old men and women sacrificed a lot. There was even this picture that went viral, a young lady who was badly wounded, attacked by thugs. She, after treating herself, she still came back and voted with a heavily bandaged face. I mean, all these sacrifices, for me, will not go in vain. Yes. Okay,
Martin, he said it is not all over. Now, there were protests that trailed the non-usage of beavers. I'm sure you watched the collection at the National Center, where Dino Melaye, stridently protested alongside other party agents, insisting on the use of beavers. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo issued a statement, very weighty comments on the INEC performance concerning the election. There were protests, peaceful protests. There were comments even from the international observers and all of that. But at the end, INEC went ahead to declare results last night. Then I said it is not all over, because many people have sacrificed hugely for this election. What are your thoughts over what he said?
Let us take it step by step. You see, why I continue to lament on the failure of INEC and the complicity of INEC in this issue is that the problem with us here in Nigeria is that we don't treat things fundamentally. You see, if you look at the IRF where we talk about, you remember recently that FIFA, the global football organizing body, came up with what it called VAR. So many times in the past, no person knew whether this was a penalty or not a penalty, whether the ball crossed the line or did not cross the line, whether it was a yellow card or a red card. FIFA, and that is why we almost must imitate and follow the whites. They now said we must solve this jinx, this trouble. Came up with a VAR. FIFA bought into it and told us that for the very first time in the history of World Cup since 1990, the world will watch the World Cup with a VAR. Imagine what it would have happened if the 32, was it 32 or 64 countries that went for the World Cup, went there and there was no VAR. But FIFA provided it. I remember in one of the matches between Argentina, the eventual winners, and Holland, there was a penalty appeal. The referee, the center referee, who was from Portugal, didn't see it. It was the VAR that called him, and he gave the penalty. And Holland used that spotting to level up, scores, and the game went not just into extra time, but to penalty, shootout. So what I'm saying is that this IRF was equivalent to VAR. Why didn't INEC use it? And if for whatever technical reason the thing was faulty or malfunctioning before the commencement of the collection, INEC ought to have said, please let it be on record that the BVAS malfunctioned, the IVR, we're not going to use it. They didn't. So it is for the Labour Party, PDP, and other parties that protested had a reason, a constitutional reason, and a pledge. That is point number one. Point number two, when they were protesting, asking the INEC national chairman, why are we not using IRF? Why was the result not transmitted electronically? The man didn't provide any answer. In the court of law, in the police station, even in a community setting at the village in square, if somebody is alleging that Ori Martins has committed this fraud or this offense, and questions are being asked to me, and I kept quiet, it means that I am culpable. So by the national officer of INEC, the #1 returning officer of INEC, by keeping quiet, it is said, of course, that silence is okay. So by keeping quiet has shown that, and I counted that question, they asked them that question 11 times. Repeatedly, he didn't answer one, which means he knew what happened. So the protest that was staged was very much in order, was very much commendable. Whether it is going to be the end or whether something is going to happen is left for Nigerians, is left for the judiciary. And I, as Ori Martins, my confidence in the judiciary is not very much, because following by what happened on January 14, 2020 here in Imo State case, you should know what. And again, do you know that when the PDP lost the governorship seat in Imo State on January 14, 2020, they went for a review. When that review was had, Supreme Court told us that it has no power to review itself. But in the case of Innocent and the GT Bank, Supreme Court reviewed itself. Supreme Court reviewed itself. The same set of judges who said Supreme Court could not review itself in the case of PDP, Emeke Edoha, and Uzodinma, APC Nemo, turned back and reviewed. The same persons that read the judgment were still the same person who now turned around and withdrew the case of Innocent and they awarded to GDP. So what I'm telling you is that you could hear the national agent of the APC telling Labour Party, PDP to go to court, to go to the tribunal. They knew that nothing will come out of it. So, however, my good friend and brother, whatever is giving him the absolute confidence that something is going to come up afterwards is what I do not know. Because remember, there is a figure 3 involved. Whenever figure 3 is involved in Nigeria, it's always ending in crisis.
What do you mean by figure 3?
Figure 3 is in 1963, the failed census, the failed first census count in Nigeria that split, that divided Nigeria. Yes, that was the first time they made Igbo people to be a minority. That was the first time, to 1973, when Gowon told us that he was no longer going to conduct election, that eventually in 2 years after resulted in his ouster. To 1983, the coup that brought Muhammadu Buhari to power for the first time. To 1993, when June 12th election was annulled. This is 2023. So I don't understand the magic that is going to be involved. And Tinubu has broken a jinx, which has been fighting so much to break. What is that jinx? Nigeria has any person parading the same faith ticket in Nigeria has never, not just Muslim, any presidential candidate parading same faith ticket, no matter how strong you are, has always failed. And incidentally, the three persons were all from the Southwest, Yoruba people. The first was Awolowo, who in 1979-83 used Philip Umadi, a fellow Southerner, a fellow Christian, as his running mate. He failed. Even though that people said he won that election because of the misinterpretation of two-thirds of 19 states, to NKO Abiola again, who in 1993 used Alhaji Babagana Kinkibe. He failed again. I was expecting this thing to fail. On that.
No, Martin, you see, I think you are indirectly agreeing with what he said. Because this
no, that's what I'm saying. I now came back to say the figure, what may happen. That is what I'm saying now.
Yeah. So do the eventually.
That's what I have got about the judiciary. That place is not it. But I'm now reading out what I may call metaphysical forces.
Okay, and let me come in here. Yes, I totally agree with Mr. Martins when he tries to express doubts, about our judiciary. Yeah. Of course, the truth remains that our judiciary remains one of the institutions that Nigerians have lost faith in. Yes, the confidence Nigerians have in our judiciary is very poor, is very low, and this. It's of course you don't ask people why, or you don't ask me why, because it's based on what they have seen so far, what the judiciary have done so far. Now, the point I'm making and where I'm coming from is the fact that we must have to, in the first place, exhaust the process. For now, we still have something we can do. You understand? Though they are saying, they have their own confidence, saying, go and seek redress in the courts. Of course, people have come up with that adage that when this African adage that says that when a robber begins to tell you to go to courts, that know that his elder brother or his brother is the judge. So all these things are making people to lose confidence in going to judiciary. But what I'm saying is that let us get started. Let us follow the process towards pursuing this, which a lot of people have described as rape on our democracy. You understand? Stealing of the people's votes in an open day, sin. So we have to begin, and then until we have exhausted this process, we can't really say what the outcome will look at. After all, like he said, in 1993, when Abiola, though he was not declared, but it became almost obvious that he won by the results, but at the end of the day, we saw how it panned out. So let's watch and see what how this whole thing plays out.
Okay, Durudan is still with you. Let me. You see, Tinubu was announced the winner of the election early this morning, between 3 and 4 o'clock or thereabout.
4 o'clock.
After 4.
After 4.
10 minutes after.
10 past 4.
Yes, after 4. Yeah. Now, if you gauge the mood of the nation, everywhere is so quiet, as if it's maybe there's what I can call a graveyard silence. I try to also feel the pulse of other parts of the nation. They were kind of people are not comfortable with the situation, with the development. Now, based on that, what do you think is going to likely happen next?
Well, for me, to be very blunt with the situation, Nigeria seems to be in a mourning mood. That is the picture that, the reaction almost all across the country has painted. It's really, really like a people in a mourning mood. And you won't ask the reason why. The reason is very simple, because people felt that this is not supposed to be the outcome of the election. This is the simple reason. As for the way out or the way forward, personally, I belong to those who are calling for calm, who are saying, don't protest yet, even though ordinarily, constitutionally speaking, protest is part of our rights. We have the right to protest, peaceful protest against anything we consider not right, abnormal. So for now, for the sake of peace and looking at how tense the situation appears, I belong to those who are saying, calm down, let's really see what happens, especially looking at the quality of the man whom a lot of people are looking up to win this election. Talking about the former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, he once recovered his mandate through the judiciary. He even did that twice. So looking at the quality of the man we're talking about here, we know definitely he will be consulting now. He will be making one or two moves to really seek for redress. Even though, like expressed by Mr. Martins and a lot of people, a lot of Nigerians do not have confidence in our judiciary. But let's, begin the process of seeking for redress.
Okay, Martin, you see, if you had followed, and I know you did follow the proceedings while the election and the collection of results lasted, there were pieces of evidence, evidences, if that is correct, arising maybe from video evidences of where malpractices are taking place. Last night there was a report too that the man who somebody was picked up in Abuja, who was perpetrating
has been arrested by the police.
Yeah, has been arrested by the police. The party agents claim they have very good evidence to show that the election was rigged. And just like you said, the inability of the INEC chairman to respond to some of these issues, puts a lot of things to question. Now, what do you think? The whole thing put together, it's like somebody who is stealing. They used to say in Igbo that you are swimming and somebody is stealing your back. So the whole thing appears very childish and impunitus. If you look at what has happened so far, Nigerians are not happy and they are not hiding it. So what do you think gave INEC the impunity to do what they have done?
You see, to start with, I must have to be very sincere with you. I don't think that this INEC is currently composed and headed by Professor Yakub Mahmoud wanted to commit this impunity we are talking about here. If he had wanted to do so, he couldn't have gone ahead to import these beavers and IRF and all the other devices
and made
so many profits. In fact, the PDP presidential spokesperson, who was a member of the national agent of PDP, talking about Senator Dino Melaye, said, and he was reading it from his phone. He was pointing fingers at the national chairman of INEC. Sir, from my account here, you told Nigeria 47 times that BFAS will be used to transmit results. Why haven't you done so? That you are educator director on voters education, Festus Kiyamo, promise promise 107 times, 168 times across Nigeria. That why didn't you do so? So that shows you that the body of INEC actually wanted to deliver. Right. You see, let us come to our level. There is what we call in Nigeria order from above. There was order from above when they must have seen the results, the way it went, either in favor of Atiku Abubakar or the man. More people believe that ought to have won the election, His Excellency, the former governor of Anambra State, Peter Gregory Obi, when the oligarch of Nigeria, those who think that they own Nigeria, when they saw, and these people are not from a particular region or from a particular zone, it is comprising southeast, south, all over Nigeria. When they say this thing cannot stand, and they quickly mobilized all their men in the states and said, please don't upload, don't download, use manual transmission, which is the easiest way to rig election. All what you need to do is to go and bring extra result sheets, do away with the one you had already, and fill whatever you want to fill and send. That is what we wanted to stop in this last election. Afam, see, if you watched that calculation center very well, and the way you have been talking, the way you have been speaking, you discover that Mahmoud was crestfallen. He developed cold feet. He just managed. There was no vibrance in him. There was no radiation the way I used to know him. He was just managing to do this thing and go away. The questions being asked to him, he didn't want.
But sorry, what if somebody sees that as a decoy, as a way to deceive the people, like the whole promises made about
you are very correct, but don't every person has a conscience, even the armed robbers, the kidnappers.
Okay.
How you know it is immediately they are being caught, they start to confess immediately. You see them very quiet and very cold. No person is a strong man, so to say. So what I'm saying is that the question was why? The answer is there was a force from above. There was a force from above.
Yeah, a force from above. I don't know which of the above, because it puts a contradiction to the commitment by President Muhammadu Buhari, because that is the highest. We are the highest power.
Yes, let me tell you, many people were not happy with the president when, after casting his vote, he showed it. It is wrong. That thing, this thing is secret ballot.
Yeah.
Why people see you vote, they don't know who you voted for. It's open secret. Open, people will see you, but they don't see the ballot you are attending to. So many people, many lawyers, many civil rights organizations have condemned, have criticized it.
But Buhari was not alone. All this
understand. Did that too.
That shows you that thing I'm talking about the forces that be. So these people see the people we want to. This is where we are going. If the president of Nigeria told you that this is who I voted for, know how we behave in Nigeria. You understand? Like sheep. Any person, the first person goes, every other person follows. No, question. After this, there was order from above to truncate, yes, it was not ordinarily.
Talking about this display of ballots by the president and a few other people, you see, that is why we talk about the lawlessness of our leaders in this country. Yes. Somebody who has long lost hope in this country once told me, he's my friend, he's a Nigerian, but he's in the UK now. He once said that we should stop expecting, the much talked about dividends of democracy from non-democrats. These people make laws, but they know that the law is not for them. You see, these things, in Senate climes, I mean, the president will not just do it and get away with it. But we have moved on. He has done it. A whole lot of things happen, even in this beaver we are talking about. Are we sure we are going to look at the new electoral act and begin to implement it? We won't. What I mean by that, can we begin to prosecute all those who went against the law? Can we? We won't. I asked somebody yesterday, this thing you're talking about, I mean, yes, even though I am in support of not taking up to, as in not being violent about registering our disappointment, yes. But this judiciary you're talking about, have you heard since 1999, since the return of democracy, have you heard of anybody prosecuted who committed electoral offense? Have you? He said no. Personally, I have not. Any political office holder who was prosecuted and convicted on account of electoral offense. And that is why they do these things. They know they do it with impunity because they know that they will do it and get away with it. So with this type of scenario, I don't think we can ever get it right. With this set of people, with this type of mindset, it is not possible. One cannot give what he or she has not. It's not possible. It's unfortunate, but this is where we have found ourselves.
It's okay. Let me draw attention to the issue of overvoting. We are told that with the beavers, there cannot be overvoting. So how did overvoting arise?
The issue of overvoting can come even in advanced democracies.
Even with the use of beavers?
Yes, in the election that brought the man that took over after Clinton, the warmonger son, there were so many overvoting that made the Supreme Court to say, don't use electronic counting, go and count manually. So it can come, but what I'm saying is that the major cause of voting in the last election was that both the beavers and the manual aspect of it were used. But INEC specified that where there is overvoting, the one they will use is what the beavers recorded. But now that beavers was sidelined, the man called it by passing the beavers, which is very good, which is a very good grammatical construction. Now that the beavers were bypassed, that was why you had so many
against INEC
route and their promises. So that was what came about the overvoting.
We are going to continue this discussion, gentlemen. I hope you make yourself available. And there is so much to talk about elections, and we'll continue to review it and the issues that will continue to play out. Martins, thank you for coming to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, viewers, here we wrap it up, and please continue to stay with UHTV Niger for another interesting edition. My name is Afam Echi.
Like us.
Try and like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much.